Hi, and welcome to our show, Off the Grid, where we have the opportunity to look into various artists' lives and kind of see what makes them tick. And they're not necessarily the ones that show up on People magazine or USA Today. They're off the grid. But these people have complex lives. They have stories to tell us, and we can all learn a little bit something and maybe kind of shape ours as a result of encountering that. We have the great fortune of working today with a great blues guitarist, Travis Feaster, and he's going to be giving us a little bit about his history, and so it's awful nice to have you here on the show today.
Good to be here. Good to be on Off the Grid.
So when did you start playing guitar?
I started on my 18th birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody said, here.
I actually lived in an Amish community, believe it or not.
Okay.
And I grew
Where
up
was that?
Odin, Indiana.
Okay.
But I grew up in Washington, D.C., and Newport News, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina. I mean, these pretty big places, you know, comparatively. And I get to Odin, Indiana, and there's nothing to do. There's just nothing to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had fun doing the little things that you can do in a small town and living that life, but I just needed something else to do, and instead of getting into trouble or doing anything like that or anything illegal, I chose that as my avenue at 18 years old, you know, right out of high school, and for some reason it just grabbed me. And it became almost obsessive. I would practice 6 to 8 hours a day, and I mean,
really?
Yeah, I just fell in love with it. It just kind of, you know, I hate to say it because it sounds cliche, but it was an escape. You know, it was just it was therapy. You know, so anytime I was bored, man, pick it up for 10 minutes. 10 minutes turns into 4 hours. You know.
What was your first guitar? What did you end up getting?
It was a piece of junk, but it was a. I'd love to find, so I ought to research it. It was called a Baker piano guitar. And the reason it was called piano guitar is it didn't have a truss rod in it. It actually had a piano wire and a piano tuning key that stuck out. So I don't know what they were thinking, but by tightening the truss rod that way or loosening it that way, it would affect the wood. I don't know if it was kind of rifled in there or what. I don't know. Yeah. But the action was, I mean, it was like a bow and arrow. I mean, the action sat easily half an inch off the fretboard. It was difficult, but it was one of those things too. It's kind of like like training wheels. You know, you get used to that, and then finally you take them off, and it's like, oh wow, this isn't that bad. This is a little easier, you know. And
having to squeeze that much, all of a sudden you got this claw-like grip.
Exactly, you know, which I think, you know, who knows? It probably hurt my technique, to be honest with you, but at the same time, it made me who I am as a player, so I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. So did you start playing with bands at, you know, sometime soon after that? Were there any bands in Odin?
There was. It's kind of funny because it would almost make a terrible movie. There was a group.
Jim, we can work that out.
There we go, right?
We can make the movie.
But there was 5 guys in Odin, Indiana, who basically weren't into sports, and we just wanted to do something else. So we decided to all start playing music together. It was myself, a guy named Eric Sims, who is a great songwriting partner of mine, a guy named Dan Noble, Lance Higgins, and Jake Ressler. So we all decided that we were going to find instruments and play instruments and form a band. And of course, over a summer break. You know what I mean? Before it was kind of like our last hoorah. It was a way to hang out, do stuff, and then go to college. You know, it was kind of like and then go our separate ways in our lives. So it was kind of a cool thing. We got good enough to play about 4 songs, and then we wound up playing like the local talent show. But I mean, it was basically 5 guys all living in one house for a summer, and you can imagine just the stuff that went on there. It was a fun time. Like I said, it would make kind of an Animal House style movie. But
ladies and gentlemen, welcome out to the world famous Slippery Noodle Inn on a Wednesday night. It is home of the Blues Gem on Wednesday night. Here to get us started, put your hands together, yell, scream, do what you gotta do. Welcome to the Miller Coors stage, the W.T. Feaster Band.
Are there musicians of the past that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and that's a question I get asked a lot, and I think my answer changes every time because it depends on the last thing I heard on the stereo or or in my car. The ones that kind of always stay with me though are, of course, Jimi Hendrix. I love Hendrix. I love Mark Knopfler. Matter of fact, this guitar was kind of. Mark Knopfler plays Swamp Ash Bodies with rosewood necks, and he had his famous one like on that one Dire Straits record. It's kind of a red color. So I was like, you know what, I'd kind of like a guitar like that. But it's funny now because Mark actually plays a Don Grosh now.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of cool. So it's like, hey, maybe I do have good taste.
You guys are brothers now. You guys are like that.
Yeah, right. He's like, who? But my influences change all the time. I like a lot of people that don't play guitar. Like Junior Wells was a harmonica player. I love his feel. I love his attitude. I love the way he sang. Jimmy Smith he's probably one of the godfathers, the forefathers of the B3 organ. And I mean, he's incredible. The things he would play bass lines with his feet, chords with his left hand, and melodies with his right hand. I mean,
really?
Yeah, it's incredible. You should check some of his stuff out. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So you said the guy that influences you, he doesn't even play guitar, and you like the way a guy sings. I don't know. Do you sing as well? Okay, so you play and
I sing as well. Okay. And there's a lot of people vocally. Like a lot of people don't. You think Eric Clapton is more of this guy that's a player. Slow hand or whatever. And man, I love his voice. He's one of these guys that not only does he have some good range, but he's just got this quality to his voice as well. It's just, I hate to say it, but just real pleasant. I don't know how else to say it. Then I like this guy named Bill Perry. He passed away, but his voice had this great gravel to it. I mean, I'm more about the energy of a voice because I don't have a classically good voice, you're
no Neil Diamond.
Exactly.
Thank God
let's face it, Michael Bolton, the guy could sing, but I don't like his voice. You know what I mean? But you can't say he can't sing.
Yeah.
But then again, you get a guy like Ray Charles. Ray Charles sometimes would sing a little flat, but man, it always sounded incredible. And that's the feel, the attitude, the energy, and there'll never be another Ray.
The sun in my sky, everything that I'm
Did you start out singing, or did you start out playing guitar? Or?
I fought singing tooth and nail. I fought it. I did not want to sing, and two reasons mainly. Number one, you think about all the great guitarists, and I'm talking like the virtuosos. You know, Scott Henderson, who's a huge influence of mine. Steve Vai, Satriani, all these virtuoso. Eric Johnson, Carl Verheyen. I could go on forever, but they don't sing. Or if they do sing, it's not what they're known for. So it's like you kind of have to serve two masters, I guess, if you want to sing and play. Mm-hmm. So I fought that, and then I kind of realized that you're kind of the master of your own destiny if you sing, because you're not always dependent upon another singer or another band member or someone else to take a song in a direction. So if I write the song, I can sing it my own way. I don't have to try to convince somebody else to sing it a certain way because it's my song, you know?
Right.
So.
And you don't have to mess with the egos.
Exactly. Yeah, mine's big enough, you know?
So you fought it until finally, was that it that rounded the corner for you? It said, I need autonomy, I need...
Pretty much. I mean, I was just like everybody that starts out. I was in several bands, and I never sang. And then finally I decided that the blues music was where I wanted to go. And a lot of blues purists will probably hate me for saying this, but traditionally speaking, you hear this phrase a lot. Oh, he's got a great blues voice. You know, You hear that a lot. And it's like, at first you kind of take offense to it. It's like, so that means I can't sing anything else? And then you kind of get it. You're like, okay, he has that energy or that timbre to his voice that's a little raspy or whatever that can convey emotion, you know? And to me, that's what I really appealed to. Like I said, as far as not having to be classically trained and, you know, having a perfect pitch, you know, but having that energy. And that's what really appealed to me about blues. So I was like, I'll try to sing.
And it was well received in the beginning, or?
Not really. No, I mean,
people go,
it was one of those things.
Keep your guitars.
My goal was like, I want to sing well enough to where no one will comment on it. You know, I mean, if they walk out saying, man, it was a good show, the songs were good. Or if they walked out, oh, the guitar was cool and the band was tight, I was completely fine with that. Okay. You know, I wasn't looking for somebody to leave my show and say, man, that guy could sing. You know, I've tried to kind of hone that to where it's something I'm conscious of. It's something I do practice. So now it's pretty cool if people walk away saying, man, he could play, but I didn't know he could sing that way either. You know, so it's just like anything else with practice. You just keep getting better.
Yeah, okay. So the guitars that you play, so that's the amps that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. The guitars you play? They're
new. I mean, you can get them. You can order one today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're Don Grosh guitars. He's a custom builder. He's in Broomfield, Colorado. And hands down makes the best, I hate saying it, but S-type guitar, you know what I mean? You know, like I guess I'll just say it's Strat style guitar.
Yeah.
But it's a unique design, which you really don't notice until you pick it up and play it, that it's actually a little more streamlined. The horns are a little sharper, and the contour fits more against your body.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically, he kept all the great things about a Stratocaster, but made some minor improvements. And his attention to detail is just ridiculous. And the biggest thing for me when I play is how an instrument feels. Mm-hmm. And the day one that you get his guitar, it feels like somebody's played it for 10 years. I mean, they're broken in. They feel incredible. The fretwork's just awesome.
And it's just the way he makes them that make them feel that way, or does he pre-play them?
Well, it's got to be the way he makes them. But he did tell me the guy I work with at Don Grosh, his name's Brent, but he told me that, you know, this was one of the guitars that they didn't really want to leave because everybody kind of passed it around. And he was like, yeah, it's a real good sounding guitar, and I gotta agree.
Yeah. Yep. So any of those guys, you cross paths with them?
Yeah,
anymore?
I'm still friends with all of them. But like I said, Eric, he's a songwriting partner of mine, and on
Currently?
Yes, currently.
Okay.
And it's funny, I call him a wordsmith, because the guy, he can just paint visual images with words, and the speed at which he does it. I mean, it's an unbelievable talent.
Yeah.
So I can kind of bring him these broken songs and he'll fix them, you know?
Okay.
but at the same time, he's also got the wherewithal to where, for instance, there's a song on my new record called Gone. Well, I sent him the whole first verse and part of the second verse, and I said, hey man, why don't you change this for me? Why don't you fix it? So he goes, okay, I got it. And he sends me back verbatim exactly what I sent him. He's like, it's fixed. I was like, you didn't do anything. He said, I didn't need to. You know, so he's one of these guys that's like, just because I want his input doesn't mean he has to do it, which is a sign of maturity in songwriting for me. But yeah, he's incredible. He's an unbelievable talent.
So you said that's on one of your latest records, Gone. How many? And we're saying records, like recordings.
Yeah, CDs. But we actually, it's so funny. There's a joke, we call it the Effingham Sessions, because he lives in St. Louis. I live in Indianapolis, and it's about 4.5 hours away.
Okay.
But the closest place with any type of civilization to the middle of that is Effingham, Illinois.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've ever been to Effingham, Illinois, but they pretty much roll up the streets at 7 o'clock. So there's no distractions. So basically we just got a hotel. We'd lock ourselves in this hotel and write. And we did that over the course of 2 weekends and came up with about 14 or 15 songs. And then we whittled them down to the ones we liked, to 10 that we really liked.
So what kind of equipment do you bring to the Effingham sessions?
A digital recorder and 2 acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, and paper and pen.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of Starbucks.
Getting yacked up on Starbucks and 5 Hour Energy.
Exactly.
So you've got, how many albums do you have out now?
Just 2.
Just the 2, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of these things, I think you'll ask, the guy that put it best to me is a guy named Tad Robinson. He says, you're really doing 2 things all the time. He said, you're either performing and touring, or you're writing and recording. And it kind of made sense to me. It's like, there's no downtime. If you look at it that way, there's no downtime. And for him, it was probably just something that he was saying, but to me, it hit it as profound. So to kind of embellish on that, whenever I'm not touring, whenever I'm not out actively gigging, I'm always writing. You know, and that's the thing too, is because I never know when I want to record that next record. And when I go to record the next record, I want to have 30 songs to choose from. That way I can pick my best ones, you know.
So what kind of arena do you choose to write in? Can you just all of a sudden you're going, pull over to the side of the road? Or is it?
Well, I mean, that's, you gotta love the beauty of cell phone technology now. I mean, they're handsets is what they call them now, but you know, I got a little recorder on my cell phone that I'd speak into, and you know, I used to though. I'd have a little notepad, and if I had to pull over and write, I would. But you know, it's a lot of times it's just ideas, but most of the time it's just sitting with my instrument, you know. And sometimes I'll write on a piano, which is kind of cool because your fingers just fall on the notes a little bit differently.
Yeah. So you play piano as well?
Very poorly.
Okay.
Just enough to kind of hear different sounds and to get different voicings of chords and stuff that kind of make you look at this instrument a little bit different.
Well
Have you had to have like other occupations to keep yourself afloat in the interim? And
before I got married.
Oh, okay.
No, I actually was. When I put myself through college, I was a certified nursing assistant.
Really?
I did that for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And that was kind of to pay my tuition and to do that kind of stuff. So I mean, put myself through school that way, and then about 6 years ago, I was a paralegal for the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
So I did that gig too, and that's when I did that gig for about 2 years, and then I kind of decided if I really hit this thing hard, I think I can make a go at it, you know. And since then, I've been very fortunate, you know.
And very fortunate in being able to play out at a bunch of different places, or
to make a living playing music, you know. Now, teaching, I give individual lessons, you know, that's a huge part of it too, you know, but as far as, you know, the gigging out, being able to make a living, but where I feel most fortunate is the opportunities that it's presented for me. You know, I get to see other parts of the world. I mean, and then just the littlest things. You'll play a gig at for a professional baseball team, you know, you get to see parts of that you'll never get to see, you know. Obviously, living in Indianapolis, there's the Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
You know, you'll do a gig out there, you'll get to see parts of the speedway that you never would have seen as just a spectator. I mean, just little things like that to me, I never take for granted, you know.
Are you playing out the Speedway this year? At all?
Well, actually be in Europe during the whole month of May.
Okay.
Well, for the rest of the month of May. So, not this year. But.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue. So you're going to Europe. I hear you're going to Europe.
Yeah. Well, just England and Scotland, but it's just easier to say that instead. But no, we're touring the UK.
Yeah.
And we'll be gone for 21 days, and we're going to do some hits by ourselves, and then it's part of this thing called the New Generation Blues Tour, and it's either New Generation or Next Generation, but with two other acts. One's called Virgil and the Accelerators. They're an English act, and then a guy that I was fortunate enough to become friends with last year, a guy named Mitch Laddie. We're playing with his band. Incredible young talent. I mean, I think he's 20 years old. 20 years old right now, and he's one of these guys at 20 years old plays better than most people that have been playing all their life. You know, He's incredible.
You can
check him
almost
out.
hate him.
You know, and the thing you want to, but he's the nicest guy and most polite guy you ever meet, man. So it's like the first time you hear him, you're just like, oh my God, he plays better than me, and he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
But then you go talk to him and you say, man, you sound great, and the first word out of his mouth was, really? You know, and it's like he's so unassuming, just a great talent.
Just don't think I'm gonna take much more. Well, if you're gonna walk all over me, baby, just keep walking on out that door. Too hard all day long to sit here all alone, spend my money on another man, baby. Something about this picture seems wrong. Tired of being mistreated, baby. So tired of feeling my heart hit the floor. Walk all over me, baby, Call me on the telephone, say you need a rabbit call. I'm tired of being your fool, man. I've been that way way too long. I'm tired of being mistreated, baby. Well, I know I ain't gonna take no more. Where you gonna walk all over me, baby? Just keep walking on down that road. Thank you guys so very much. Thank you.
Do you actually write music for others that you have never played and you will never play? Or has it gotten to that yet?
Yeah, I have. Especially like sometimes I'll write stuff from a different perspective. I wrote one song, and it just didn't sound right from a male's perspective. Although, like, it started that way, but by the time it was done, it was like, maybe there's too much emotion in this, you know, and it just didn't sound right from a male perspective. So I'll kind of pitch that towards some female singers and things like that. And I've never really done it as a challenge yet, but it's something I'd like to do, like kind of say, hey, maybe I should write a couple tunes for somebody and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I love arranging tunes. I love taking people's ideas and giving them my input on that as well.
Mm-hmm. So do you see yourself continuing to be a performer or leaning toward producing?
I mean, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to do both. I love producing. I'm actually producing a record for a friend of mine named Max Jeffrey and his band Smoke Wagon, which it's a lot of fun, and I get to learn the things that I've learned from past producers.
Mm-hmm.
But I will always perform, always, because there's no greater feeling. I mean, even when the crowd's disconnected, you know, even if the crowd isn't there. We did a gig one time, and we showed up, and the place was packed. And we didn't promote this show or anything, and everybody was dressed to the nines, and we get up, we start setting up, and before we hit note number one, the bar owner says, hey, do you mind keeping it down? We have a funeral party in. So needless to say, they were disconnected from the music.
Yeah.
But still, we were performing. You know, I got to spend time with my instrument, and I got to spend time with skillful musicians, and I mean, there's no replacement for that feeling.
So that's how you handle a disconnected crowd.
Exactly.
Okay, it's a practice session.
Well, yeah, exactly. You become self-indulgent, basically.
Yeah.
You play the songs that you want to play, not what the crowd wants to hear. Because there's always a fine line. You know, there's some cover songs that we play that I know crowds really enjoy. Sometimes they drive me crazy because I've played them so many times. But
yeah.
You know, but at the same time, once you get into it, you don't even care. It's one of those things like, oh, if I have to play this song again. But as soon as you start the first note of that song, all that goes away, and you just focus on playing the.
And the crowd loves it, and see maybe
exactly,
you can feed off of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a feeling that just can't be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so very much. Thank you. say goodbye. Word to myself, so I'll give you one last piece of myself. If it's looking for I wish you well. Wish you well.
Getting back to, like, you were in Odin playing guitar and that was your escape. Do you find that other guitarists that you cross paths with have kind of a solitary life? You know, that's kind of...
It's weird. You get, like, there's really no in between. Either they're really outgoing and extroverted, you know, to where they have this huge social life, or like you're saying, you have the exact opposite, the introverted people who kind of confine themselves in, I think you said solitary, but you know, it's kind of a little bit of both, you know. But very rarely is there that one guy that kind of walks both. I kind of see myself as more of a social person, but
Yeah.
you know, I could give you examples of guys that are not.
Yeah, but to gain the art, it just seems like you have to spend some time sitting there by
Yeah,
yourself.
without a doubt. I mean, but at the same time, I think you get better faster by playing with more knowledgeable and more experienced players.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, it's one of these things. No matter what you do, if it's a trade, you can always gain knowledge by working with someone more experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And while it may not be a lesson per se, it's still a lesson to you. So anytime I can play with players better than me, I jump at the chance.
Raises the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you probably learn just from all their mistakes and all their learning experience
Exactly.
that you don't have time to make all those mistakes and have those experiences.
Exactly, and that's what I tell anybody that you know, the young people that I teach, is I tell them, look, everything I'm showing you here is just a shortcut. You know, I'm not showing you how to play your instrument. You're showing yourself how to play your instrument. I'm just giving you some shortcuts so you don't go down, you know, bad techniques and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So the things that you teach people, do you teach? Yeah, you teach them how to play. Do you teach them kind of a philosophy, or do you give them insights that, okay, here's the long, hard road that you're going to take that you're choosing right now?
It depends on what they want from it. You know, I have some students that just want to do it because their parents wanted to do it, or they want something to do because they don't want to play baseball anymore, or, you know, then I have the students that this is what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And I've had students that go to the Berkeley, you know, they go off to Berkeley and go to the IU School of Music, and those are a challenge for me because I see myself as getting them prepped for that, to where when they make that transition, it's not as difficult as, say, the guy that wasn't getting lessons, you know. So those guys, I will kind of go into some more philosophical things about it, say this is some avenues to try to go down, you know, and here's some, more importantly, the ones you don't want to.
Was there formal training in your background?
I was fortunate enough to learn from a guy named David Parman. He, I guess his claim to fame would be he spent a lot of time with John Mellencamp in the very early years and did some writing with him. And, you know, if there's any people around here that know a lot about Mellencamp's history, is he was around like with the Larry Crane days and stuff. And like, for instance, you could hear him sing on that tune, Hurt So Good, you know, but he was his bass player. And I had already kind of taught myself how to play a little bit, but when I went to school, when I went to college, he was kind of the guy that said, hey, let me show you a few things, you know, and really took me under his wing. And, you know, I'll never forget him for that, so.
Big crow shed a tear, make How about a Boston Shearer on the bass? Chris Taylor on the drums.
I'm thinking you started out like the rest of us, that you started out playing cover music.
Yeah.
When did you make that transition into your other stuff, and was it readily accepted, or was
it needed a lot of work, obviously. The way it kind of started for me was I had always written. I was never the guy that learned other people's songs. I learned what I wanted to learn from them to try to make me a better player. But as far as learning songs, just sit around and sing, I never really decided to do that. I would always, if I learned a song, it was a solo section or it was an instrumental song. But when I first started to learn how to play guitar, I think the reason I stuck with it is because the style of music that was popular at the time. It was this grunge rock, it was Nirvana, Green Day, all these bands like that. So it was kind of, not taking away from what they did because I love that music, but technically on guitar it's not that difficult. So I was able to latch onto that, and the first songs that I wrote were punk rock and alternative rock, and I wrote rock songs, just with simple melodies, simple chord patterns and progressions. And then after that, I started listening to guys like Paul Simon and James Taylor and Arlo Guthrie, and all these people that were just kind of considered, obviously the Beatles, who were considered great songwriters. And that kind of took my mind in another way. I was like, maybe I need to slow down a little bit and think about what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And so that's when you made the transition. And did you kind of blend in your stuff, and then finally you evolved? Do you play all of your own stuff now?
We do select covers now.
Okay.
But we do, because right now we probably only have about 30 original tunes, and like when we play in the UK, we normally only have to play about 90 minutes total. So we're able to kind of run through all our original stuff, but at the same time, you don't want to bore an audience. You want them to have tunes, because the thing I've noticed is it's really hard to get acceptance from a brand new song. So when you come over to support a new record, you're playing all this music they haven't heard. No one wants to go see a show and hear an hour of things they've never heard.
Right.
So throw in a few, then go back to something comfortable. And that's where, the cover tunes come in for me. That's the way I kind of look at it. When I go see it, I went and saw Clapton. And I thought he was perfect at that. While he wasn't playing Wonderful Tonight and Cocaine and Layla, but he was playing just enough stuff that would bring you back in to where he was, and then we would sprinkle in some stuff of where he's going. And to me, that was just the perfect mix.
How did you get the acceptance over in the UK? It seems Odin to Vincennes to England and Scotland. We'll just throw that in there.
Actually, it's all dumb luck, and one of the sayings I live by is the harder I work, the luckier I get. But we worked at our craft, and we played at this club here in Indianapolis called the Slippery Noodle. And this guy from England, who is a writer for a blues magazine, he said, I'm going to make sure you guys get to England by the end of this year, or I'll dance naked in Trafalgar Square. And I was like, well, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Because I don't want to see that.
But he put us in contact with my manager, Linda Valentine, and it's kind of her history is quite interesting. She was married to a guy named Hilton Valentine, who is the guitar player for the Animals. So that's how she's kind of gotten, a lot of contacts in the music industry, and plus she's got this way about her that she's just one of the most special women I've ever met in my life. But she's got this way about her to where she's very good with people, and so she kind of booked a few gigs for us, and we were fortunate enough to where we had a guy called Dave Scott, who really believed in us and believed in us enough to basically, I hate to put that kind of value, that kind of interest, and I hate to put a dollar sign on it, but he helped us out a little bit and said, hey, I'm not worried about it. I'll get my money back. Here's a few $100 to get you guys over here.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's been, so you look at that, and he's an integral part of my career.
Yeah.
Because fortunately for him, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. And then since then, we've been able to kind of build a following around there, and it was kind of cool because when you're 4,000 miles away, you don't realize the impact you have. You don't realize that, hey, people do like my music because you're just so far removed. And then I just found out about a month ago that I was actually nominated for a British Blues Award for Best Overseas Artist.
Isn't that cool?
So it kind of solidified the fact what, my manager has been telling me all along. She's like, your profile's kind of raising over here. And I was, whatever. It's like, we'll get it up there. We'll get it. She's like, it's getting up there. And then, and it's kind of cool too because one of my heroes is a guy named Walter Trout. And it's funny. There's a little connection there. Austin, my bass player, is the stepson of Walter's bass player. So yeah,
okay,
exactly.
drawing that tree.
Exactly. But it was kind of cool because the way that I found out was that I was nominated from this award is Walter Trout called Rick, who was Austin's stepdad. Rick called Austin, and Austin told me. And the reason that's cool is because Walter Trout is also nominated for a British Blues Award for Best Overseas Artist. So I mean, and here's a guy that's, like I said, one of my heroes, one of these guys that's been out doing it forever. So it's not even like, some people would get upset, like, oh man, I'm up against that kind of competition. Man, the way I see it is I'm actually mentioned with these people. Another guy, Joe Bonamassa, who is pretty much as big as you can get right now in the blues rock world. And, he's nominated for the same award. So to be put, I don't want to say at that level because it sounds kind of, well, I'm just not there yet, yet being the key word. But
somebody seems to think you are.
I guess.
You're just being humble now, and we'll let other people just say, hey, you're there.
I'm just trying to be real, you know? But to be mentioned on the same ballot as those guys, it's an honor. And to me, that's a victory.
Isn't that great? Well, do you play with a actual, set group of people all the time? It's called your band?
It used to kind of be that way, but recently it's been... I always play with this guy Austin Shearer, man. He's an incredible bass player, and just he's one of my better friends. He's one of my best friends. So, of course, I want to say nothing but nice things about him. But when you just get real, the guy is the most professional player I've ever worked with, the most solid player I've ever worked with. I mean, he's always punctual. I mean, everything about him that you would want. And a coworker, if you want to even go that route.
Yeah.
He is. He's everything you want, not to mention just very skilled at his craft, But, and like I said, he's a great friend, too. So, I mean, we cut up on the road and everything. So he's kind of like the standby. And,
is he traveling with you to England and Scotland?
Yeah, This will be his third time going overseas with me.
Oh, good.
So, only one time was he unable to go. And, that was a bummer. But, I found a guy to go with me, and he did a great job. But
who else is traveling with you, and how many are they?
A guy named Chris Taylor on drums. This will be his second year. He went with us last year, but he's another one of these guys, man. He's your typical musician, just the life of the party, but unbelievable in his craft. I mean, he's a wild one, man. He's fun. He's a lot of fun to hang out with too. But he's the yin. I'm the yang. You know what I mean? I'm grounded. I'm very professional whenever I'm on the road, and he's he's professional. I don't want to say he's not, but he's not afraid of a good time.
Okay. So it's those you three people that are.
And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty easy to move around.
Yeah, and I mean, when we play here at in the States, mainly locally, there's a guy named Kevin Anchor who's just phenomenal. He plays keyboards that we're lucky enough that he'll slum it with us every now and again. But no, he plays with he does gigs with Delbert McClinton, Daryl Newlish, Tad Robinson. So I mean, he's one of these guys that's very well respected and rightly so.
So what would any of these people say, like the drummer that you play with? What would they say about working with you?
Oh wow. Pointing it back on me. I really don't know. I think I would hope they'd say that I'm fair, I would hope that they'd say that, that I've put time into my craft, and that they're not embarrassed to be on stage with me, So I've never really thought of it that way, That's interesting. I might have to ask them.
And so if there were people that you wanted to jam with, who knows whether this becomes a vehicle to make that a reality, but it gets out there and you go, what? So who would you like to jam with that's like out there now who really you've admired for a long time? Or
Mark Knopfler, hands down. I'd love to jam with that guy. His tone, his technique, everything about that guy. He's one of these things. You listen to Dire Straits, you listen to the new stuff he's done, you listen to the stuff he did with Chet Atkins, and it's all got this just incredible mood to it, and it can be a different mood, different emotion, but it's got this same mood to it. And to me, he would be the guy that I'd most like to kind of just sit and pick him apart as far as his brain and how he approaches the instrument.
Yeah.
That should be a good time. This is the title track off of our first CD. I can't stand it. No, I couldn't stand it. Not even if I tried. I've been stranded, and I gotta hand it to you. You brought me down from the inside. When you cheated, I'm mistreated. I can put that all on you. I'm not to blame. Don't be no shame. I can put that all on you. Well, you lie and you're crying. Say you even feel like dying. Say you're sorry, knowing I'm dying. Your apology is long overdue. So long overdue. Start out great, I go away. Come on for you. Think I owe down in the mud. Like a time that burned up blue. Well, you lie and you're crying. Say you even feel like dying. Say you're sorry, knowing I'm dying. Your apology is long overdue. So long overdue. You lie, now you're crying. Say you even feel like dying. Say you're sorry, you know I'm not lying. Your apology is long overdue. So long overdue. So long overdue. Yeah, long overdue.
We were talking about the different gigs that you've had along the way to help
Right.
support this. And then you alluded to, well, since I've been married. So you're very fortunate, I'm sure, and you feel this way, that you've got a wife that'll support you psychologically.
Emotionally, all kind, and just she supports my career, and that's the one thing that the biggest gift I've ever got was her.
Mhm.
And I don't know how I was lucky enough to get her, but
What's her name?
her name's Stacy
Okay.
Feaster. But yeah, she keeps me grounded. Not only does she keep me grounded, but she also lets me fly. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. She lets me go out and do my thing, and she just sits out in the audience and is a proud wife, and that's invaluable.
Did she follow your music before you guys got together, or how'd you guys
not at
meet?
all.
This is a question my wife
Yeah.
would ask. So how did they meet? What was she
Yeah.
wearing?
I can actually remember, but we actually met in a venue that I was just going to see a band, and she saw me and I saw her. Phone numbers, whatever. But it was kind of cool too that she had no idea that I played music, and to me
Oh, yeah.
that was really cool because when you play music, and it's so funny too, girls like to think that well, guys too, I guess, they like to think that women throw themselves at you. And the perfect example, I remember playing this one place, and this was years ago when I was a single guy, but I was on stage, and there was a few women there that were, interested, we'll say it that way.
Okay.
I got off stage, within 2 minutes, they forgot who I was. Literally, I walked off the stage, they had no idea who I was.
Really?
And that's the way it is. But
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool for my wife to be attracted to me and not even know that I played guitar, in the very beginning. And the thing is too, we just had so much in common, and like I said, she had no problem with me being a musician. She still doesn't. She supports it. She likes it. And
How long have you been married?
7 years.
Yeah?
Yeah, been together 10 years.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've survived the 7-year itch?
we're working on it now.
Oh, okay.
When I was young, my father told me, son, all you need in life is whiskey and a gun. Now, how you keep me guessing, that's rule number one. Wait to see coming back. I keep coming back. I was a man that's born by age 22. Desperado back in rhythm and every night in that spotlight, well, I'm sticking it to you. When you see, I keep you coming back. I keep you coming back. I'm a little long time. I might give you the word. Surely gonna make her mine. I do it all the time. I'm bad music and a woman on my mind. I'll make her turn around, baby. Paper dirty, damn that boy can play. I'll keep you coming back, we'll keep you coming back, we'll keep you coming back for more. We'll keep you coming back for more. Come on, baby. Coming back, we'll keep coming back, we'll keep you coming back for more. We'll keep you coming back for more. Feaster Band. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up one more time. The W.T. Feaster Band getting us started on our Wednesday night.
Travis, it has been great having you come on the show, and I think we have a lot of good material. It's always interesting for me to interview all of you and the ones that I've done, because I get to see like the inside of what's going on with you. So,
well, thanks for having us. This is a great opportunity, a great experience for us. Thank you.
all right, so that's our show for today. So we'll see you next time off the grid.